So
Okay.
let's just start with the reaction. The reaction. Now sounds like I'm living in Cape Town. Did you expect the reaction after your art was posted all over social media and with no context?
I did not expect that the artwork would become viral in the way that it did. By virtue of the subject matter that I was dealing with in my artwork, I did expect that it may garner some negative opinions amongst the people that viewed it. But in the process of creating the exhibition that I put forward, I never thought that the artwork would actually reach an audience wider than the people that actually entered the school hall. I mean, I did put a disclaimer up saying that no photography was allowed. So I was under the impression that perhaps only a few teachers, parents, and senior students would see the art. So when the art went viral, I was quite surprised that it reached such a wide audience. And I was simultaneously disappointed that it was misrepresented in the way that it was.
Where were you when you heard about the video?
Well, I was at home. Actually, what happened was on the day of the award ceremony when that video was made and posted, before the video was even posted onto social media, I had taken my exhibition down. And that was simply because of the fact that it was on that day that the exhibition was due to be removed. And so what happened was I took the exhibition down. I brought all of the artworks home without any knowledge that a video had been posted to the internet. And then after some period of time had passed, maybe 1 or 2 hours, one of my friends had contacted me on WhatsApp and told me that, this video had been posted and, that it was gaining a little bit of momentum. So I found out that way. One of my friends told me, and, once I heard, I went onto Facebook and I saw it for myself.
And then, like you said now, the exhibition, it was very clear that it had a warning and a kind of age restriction to say, senior pupils, and then no photos or videos were supposed to be taken. What would you say to that Pastor Omi that just basically broke the rules? I mean, it was just not respectful.
Well, what would I say to him? I'm not sure if I can quite disclose what I would say. I'm really lost for words as to what I would say to that man. I mean, all that has happened in response to the exhibition, especially the magnitude of the response to an exhibition that actually isn't on display anymore. I mean, I cannot think at the moment of anything more unnecessary than the controversy that had resulted from that video being posted. But on the other hand, as I told you earlier when we were planning this interview, one of the things that I can recognize very easily is how good all of this publicity has been for me as an artist. I mean, I said earlier that the act of posting through the act of posting that video onto his Facebook, that pastor is perhaps the best promotional agent I could have ever wished for. I mean, there's been so many people and galleries and organizations contacting me, interested in my art and me as an artist, that it really has benefited me. So if I were to say anything to the pastor, I would probably highlight how beneficial this has been to me.
It's a massive paradox. It makes me smile. And then everyone wants to know, I went through all the explanations that was with each piece, and it's really it's so clever. And I mean, I could see that you were very intellectual, you're very sharp. But the basic question a lot of people wanted to know, what was your motivation? What, like in lay terms, what did you want to say with your art?
Okay, well, in lay terms, what I wanted to say, well, it's really what I put forward in that statement that I released earlier in the week.
Yes.
I did. I'm sure you've seen it. That
Yes.
statement I released. All that I wanted to achieve with the art was to put forward to my audience which I never knew would be so big,
Yes.
was to put forward to my audience a dissection of faith and religion in the society in which we live, organized religion, and simply make people think, not necessarily as to the contents of their belief, not make them think about what they believe, but how they believe it. And I said that in my statement that I released earlier in the week. All that I really want is to, as an artist, at least in this body of work, put forward that critique of organized religion and provoke thought in the mind of the viewer that perhaps makes them engage a little bit more intimately with what they believe, instead of perhaps consuming their religion or whatever the case may be in the same way that they may consume any other product, which of course has become a very big trend in the society that we find ourselves living in. And I think that sort of dynamic of consumerism has infected religious belief and metaphysical belief, and that's a concern that I wanted to put forward.
Yes. Would you experiment or use other religions or organized religion, like in this case it was Christianity and specifically Jesus? Would you do the same with Hinduism or Muslim with Islam or something like that? Or do you think you said enough about religion with this art piece?
Well, that's a very interesting question. The exhibition in itself and the artworks therein that commented on organized religion, they weren't delivering a commentary that was exclusive to Christianity. I mean, there are some artworks in the exhibition. Well, there's one that I can think of that is a very personal artwork that acts as a sort of an introspective reflection on the history of my own metaphysical beliefs. So that does sort of talk about Christianity and secularism in particular. But the artworks that caused the most controversy, which were the ones that featured Ronald McDonald, even though they made a very explicit use of Christian imagery, distinctly Christian imagery, the concept behind the artworks have universal applicability, at least in the context of many contemporary religions that do organize themselves into churches or whatever institution it may be. My choice of Christian imagery was motivated by a number of reasons. One of them is the fact that of all the religions that have mainstream practice today, Christianity has a very rich history of devotional art and devotional painting, which other religions either do not have or did not have in the same way that Christianity does in terms of lending itself to appropriation. So if you look, for example, at maybe something like Islam, okay, it doesn't have the same history of devotional painting as Christianity.
Yes.
As of course there's the whole restriction of not being allowed to depict the Prophet Muhammad.
Yes.
So and that contrasts very strongly with Christianity, where you have a very, very long history of devotional paintings that blatantly put forward characters from the Bible, often verbatim recreating scenes from biblical stories.
Yes.
And in terms of creating an artwork, those paintings, which create such how can I say, such an engaging composition and scene that the viewer can interact with visually, that's gold in terms of appropriating them and then changing the symbols of the composition to suit your message. Whereas, in other religions, it could be that the content of the devotional art, or perhaps the style in which it is rendered, didn't lend itself particularly well to the style in which I draw or create art. Additionally, the community in which the exhibition took place, the community in my area is a largely Christian community. So if I want to communicate a sentiment about religion and organized religion, it only makes sense that I talk to them in a language that they understand. So if I want to talk to Christians about organized religion, not necessarily about Christianity, I might as well use symbols that they are familiar with, as it is only by doing that I will be able to, poignantly converse with them and actually engage them emotionally, because then they're going to look at these compositions and they're going to recognize them as being something that they hold dear. or at least connected to something that they hold dear. And as a result of that, they will perhaps take me more seriously. Apart from that, I also, before I was secular, before I became atheist, I used to be a Christian, so many of the symbols have personal relevance to me.
Yeah.
And I despite all of the research I had done, in some cases when I want to convey a personal message, it is only honest for me as an artist to use that imagery.
And then your reaction, I mean, I think that was like the proof in terms of hate mail. I mean, that's why this is a telephonic interview, because like with Skype, you even got death threats. I mean, that must have been a shocker. And I mean, that's coming from Christians.
Yeah, it's very ironic. However, at the end of the day, the value of art is not determined by how many people like it. It's rather the sum of both the positive and negative responses. Because, no matter how vitriolic some of the messages posted on social media may be, at least I've got people thinking. And whether that thinking actually goes anywhere in some cases, I can't really comment on, but, at least I've made an impact.
No, definitely. And just quickly, what's your plans for next year, for the future? What do you want to study? You want to go into art? Because, I mean, you're a top student basically in everything you do.
Well, I am definitely going to be pursuing my art further. I'm very interested in pursuing a career in art, professionally. I've already started creating a portfolio of new artworks that build upon this exhibition, that I'm hoping in promoting next year and putting forward professionally. But in terms of like studies, I've been accepted to study physics and astrophysics at university. But I'm interested in pursuing both of these things in equal capacity. So yeah.
Gary, I just want to say, I mean, I studied theology and I'm still a believer, but I just want to apologize for the absolute chaotic, I can't even describe the hate that came your way from Christians. If there's no excuse being offended and giving someone death threats, threatening you with physical harm. So from my side, I just want to apologize, and thanks for your time.